Tonight we will walk a path that does not run away from life's hard times, but leads us to look at them in a new way. We will learn about the old wisdom of Zen Buddhism. These teachings have shown many people how to find peace, not by controlling life, but by learning to flow with it. You will find the natural ease that comes when you stop pushing against the way things are. We will travel together through old stories and simple truths that speak not to the busy mind looking for answers, but to the wise heart that already knows how to rest. We will learn to see fighting against things not as strength, but as a useless struggle, and our hard times not as enemies to beat, but as teachers giving us the gift of letting go. Welcome to this quiet place. This is your safe spot. A space where you can put down the heavy load of trying to make life match your wishes. There is nothing here to finish, no problem to solve, and no version of yourself you need to turn into. Simply let these words find their way to the places inside you that are ready to stop fighting. Our journey begins with a truth that might surprise a mind used to struggle. The act of fighting against life is what creates most of our unhappiness. Not life itself, but our quiet, constant pushing back against how life happens. This fighting is so mixed into our daily life that we hardly notice it. The small tightness when things don't go as planned. The inner arguing with what is happening. The tiring effort to make reality match what we want. This fighting back is not a personal failure or a sign of being weak. It is simply what happens when we forget who we really are. When we believe we are separate from life instead of a part of it. Tonight, we will gently look at this habit we don't even notice. Not to judge it, but to understand it so clearly that it naturally starts to melt away, like ice melting in the warmth of spring sunshine. In the Zen tradition, there is a teaching about water. Water never fights the rocks in the river. It doesn't argue with the mountain that blocks its path. It simply flows, finding its way through the smallest opening, wearing down stone, not through force, but through gentle patience. Water teaches us that the softest things in the world can overcome the hardest. You are like water. Your real nature is fluid, able to change, and peaceful. But somewhere along the way, you learn to be like ice, stiff, hard, and frozen in place by fear and what you expect. Tonight, we explore how to melt back into your natural state, not by forcing the ice to break, but by allowing the warmth of your attention to soften what was never meant to be hard. The Buddha taught that all unhappiness comes from fighting against what is happening, but Zen takes this teaching deeper. It shows us that the person fighting and the thing being fought are not two separate things. When you stop fighting life, you find out you are life itself, flowing naturally and peacefully without pushing back. Are you ready to put down the weapons you have been carrying against your own life? Are you ready to find out what is left when the fight ends? Let's begin this journey back to your natural state, back to the flowing water of who you are. A student once asked the Zen master Joshu, "What is the way?" Joshu answered, "Ordinary mind is the way." The student kept asking, "Should I try to guide myself toward it?" Joshu answered, "If you try to guide yourself toward it, you move away from it." The student was confused. "But if I don't try, how can I know the way?" Joshu smiled. "The way doesn't belong to knowing or not knowing. Knowing is just an idea. Not knowing is blankness. When you reach the way beyond doubt, you will find it as huge and open as outer space. How can we talk about it using words like right and wrong? This old conversation shows the first layer of fighting back, the mind's need to grab, direct, and control the flow of what happens. Even in spiritual searching, we fight by trying to force ourselves to wake up, by making peace into another goal to reach rather than a natural state to notice. Let yourself notice without judging where tension lives in your body right now. Is there tightness in your jaw from words you didn't say today? Tightness in your shoulders from heavy loads you feel you must carry? A knot in your stomach from decisions you are avoiding? These tight spots in the body are an honest answer to mental fighting. The body never lies about what you are fighting against, but fighting isn't just physical. Watch how your mind moves when faced with something uncomfortable. Notice how quickly it jumps to, "This shouldn't be happening," or "If only this were different," or "I can't handle this." These thoughts appear so automatically that we rarely question them. Yet each one is a small act of violence against reality, a tiny declaration of war against what is happening. The Zen teacher, Huang Po, taught that most people live in a house of worry, constantly fixing the walls, making the doors stronger, checking the locks. But the house itself is the problem. The walls of fighting back that we build to protect ourselves become the very prison that keeps us trapped. What would happen if you simply walked out of the house? What would happen if you discovered there was never any real danger to protect against? In the silence between your thoughts right now, feel the space that holds both comfort and discomfort without picking a favorite. This space doesn't fight anything. It doesn't push away pain or grab for pleasure. It simply allows all experiences to come and go like clouds in an empty sky. You are this space. You are this allowing awareness. But somewhere along the way, you forgot and began to think you were the passing clouds instead. Fighting back often pretends to be protection. The mind tells you that if you don't push against what is happening, you will be overwhelmed, hurt, or lost. But this is the big misunderstanding that creates unhappiness. True protection doesn't come from fighting. It comes from being flexible. The tree that bends in the storm survives while the stiff one breaks. There is a story of a Zen monk who was meditating by a river when a scorpion fell into the water. Without waiting, the monk reached in to save it, but the scorpion stung him. He pulled back, shook his hand, then reached in again. Again, the scorpion stung him. A person walking by saw this and shouted, "Why do you keep trying to save that scorpion? Can't you see it will only hurt you?" The monk replied calmly, "It is the nature of the scorpion to sting. It is my nature to save. Just because the scorpion doesn't change its nature, why should I change mine?" This story shows a deep truth about fighting back. The monk didn't fight the scorpion's nature or his own. He didn't fight against being stung or try to change what couldn't be changed. He simply acted from his true nature without needing the world to be different than it is. This is what it means to live without fighting. Not doing nothing, but taking real action that flows from accepting what is. Take a moment to breathe into this understanding. Feel how your breath doesn't fight coming or going. It flows naturally, easily, without your conscious control. Your heart beats without fighting. Your blood flows without arguing. Your body knows how to live without fighting itself. The fighting exists only in the thinking mind that has forgotten its true nature. Yet fighting back has become such a habit that we often don't notice it until it creates obvious pain. We fight getting older, so we suffer with each birthday. We fight other people's opinions, so we suffer in every argument. We fight our own emotions, so we suffer twice, once from the feeling itself and again from our fight against it. We fight change, so we suffer through every shift. We fight uncertainty, so we suffer in the space between knowing and not knowing. The funny thing is that fighting never actually stops what we are fighting against. Aging happens anyway. The opinions stay, the emotions come up, change continues, uncertainty remains. All our fighting does is add a layer of pain to what might otherwise be simply part of life's natural flow. Master Dogen, the founder of Soto Zen, taught that deep understanding is not something to earn, but simply the natural state when confusion falls away. The confusion is the belief that we are separate from life, that we must protect ourselves against it, control it, improve it, or escape from it. But in truth, we are life itself. How can life fight itself without creating pain? Think for a moment what would be left if you stopped fighting your experience right now. What would be left if you didn't push away the discomfort? Didn't grab for something better? Didn't try to figure it all out? In that space of not fighting, There is a natural peace that doesn't depend on things being different. It is not the peace of getting what you want, but the peace of not needing anything to be other than what it is. This is why Zen focuses on just sitting, zazen, not sitting to achieve something, not sitting to get rid of thoughts or emotions, not sitting to become wise, just sitting, just allowing whatever comes up to come up without interfering. In this simple practice, we learn that our natural state is already peaceful, already whole, already free. The fighting was the only thing blocking our view of what was always true. As you settle deeper into rest, notice how fighting often appears in the form of mental comments. The voice that says, "I should be more relaxed by now," or "this isn't working," or "my mind is too busy." Even these thoughts can be met without fighting. They are just more weather passing through the sky of your mind. You don't have to fight the comments or believe them. You can simply notice them with the same gentle attention you might give to the sound of distant traffic or rain on the roof. The ancient Zen texts speak of no mind, mushin. This doesn't mean having no thoughts, but rather not being controlled by thoughts, not fighting them or thinking you are them. In no mind, thoughts come and go like reflections in still water. The water doesn't fight the reflections or try to hold on to them. It simply reflects perfectly whatever appears, then returns to stillness. When the image moves on, your awareness is like this still water. It has the ability to reflect any experience. Joy, sadness, fear, love, confusion, clarity, without being disturbed by what it reflects. The disturbance comes only when you forget that you are the water and instead believe you are the reflection. When you remember your true nature as awareness itself, fighting naturally melts away, because there is nothing to protect and no one to do the protecting. There is another story from the Zen tradition about a student who complained to his master that his meditation was terrible, full of distracting thoughts and uncomfortable feelings. The master asked him to bring a glass of muddy water from the garden pond. When the student returned with the dirty water, the master said, "Now, make the water clear." The student tried stirring it, but it only became dirtier. He tried filtering it through a cloth, but dirt still remained. Finally, tired from his efforts, he simply set the glass down and waited. Slowly, without doing anything, the dirt settled to the bottom, and the water became perfectly clear. "You see," said the master, "the water clears itself when you stop stirring it up. Your mind is the same way. Stop trying to fix it, improve it, or clear it, and its natural clarity will come out." This is the heart of not fighting, trusting the natural process of settling, of clearing, of returning to balance. When you stop stirring up your experience with fighting, when you stop trying to fix what isn't broken, the mind naturally returns to its clear, peaceful state. Feel this settling beginning now as your body relaxes more deeply into rest. Notice how letting go of the need to fix or improve this moment allows it to show its natural wholeness. The peace you are looking for isn't somewhere else, waiting for you to become good enough for it. It is here in this very experience, seen when you stop hiding it with fighting. The path of Zen is sometimes called the gateless gate. There is nowhere to go because you are already there. Nothing to achieve because you already are what you seek. Nothing to fight because everything is already part of your true self. The gate is gateless because there was never anything to keep you out of your own true nature. The fighting was the only wall, and it was never real, only a habit of the mind that can be gently let go. As we move deeper into this exploration, let yourself rest in the understanding that fighting back is not your enemy. It is simply a wrong attempt to find safety in an unsafe world. But the safety was never in controlling life. It was always in recognizing yourself as the space where all of life's experiences can safely come and go. You are the sky, not the weather. You are the ocean, not the waves. You are the awareness, not the things you are aware of. And in this understanding, the fight ends. Not because you give up in defeat, but because you remember there was never anyone to fight and nothing to fight against. There is only this breath, this moment, this perfect flowing, ever-changing expression of life being itself. And you are not separate from it. You are it, flowing naturally without fighting, like water returning to water, like space recognizing itself as space. Rest now in this natural flowing. Let the fighting melt like ice melting in warm sunshine. You don't have to make it happen. Just allow the natural warmth of awareness to do what warmth does. Soften what was never meant to be hard. Melt what was never meant to be frozen. Return what was never truly separate back to its natural state of flowing wholeness. When fighting begins to soften, when you stop fighting what is, something becomes clear that was always there beneath the struggle. The Zen masters knew this secret, that acceptance is not something you do, but the realization of what you already are. You are the space that naturally accepts all experience, the awareness that holds whatever comes up without question or condition. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within, do not seek it without." But what he didn't say directly, what Zen shows through direct pointing, is that this inner peace is not something you create through acceptance. It is something you uncover by stopping the creation of fighting. Like the moon that appears when clouds move away, your peaceful nature comes out when the clouds of fighting reality melt away. Feel this truth settling into your body now as you rest. Notice how your breath accepts each moment without argument. Your lungs don't fight the air that enters. They don't hold on to the air that leaves. There is a wisdom in this natural rhythm that your thinking mind has forgotten, but your body remembers perfectly. Each breath out is a small letting go. Each breath in is a gentle receiving, and neither fights the other. This is what real acceptance looks like. Not sad giving up or passive obedience, but the alive recognition that fighting the flow of life is like trying to make water flow uphill. It can be done with huge effort, but it goes against the natural way of things. And in this struggle against nature, we tire ourselves out for no reason. There is a story of two Zen monks walking through a forest when they came to a river high from recent rains. Standing at the bank was a beautiful woman in fine clothes, afraid to cross because the current was strong, and she would surely ruin her clothes. The older monk, without waiting, picked her up and carried her across. He set her down on the other side, and she thanked him and went on her way. The two monks continued walking in silence. After several hours, the younger monk could no longer hold back. "Brother," he said, "we have taken vows not to touch women, yet you carried that woman across the river." The older monk smiled gently and replied, "I left that woman at the riverbank hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story shows the difference between a natural response and mental fighting. The older monk saw what was needed and acted without inside conflict. He didn't fight his vows, nor did he fight the woman's need. He responded to what was there, then let it go completely. The younger monk, however, carried the experience for hours, creating pain through his mental fighting against what had already happened. Your mind might be like the younger monk right now, carrying experiences from today, yesterday, even years past, replaying moments when life didn't go according to plan. But acceptance invites you to set down these loads, not because the experiences weren't real or important, but because carrying them serves no purpose. The woman reached her destination long ago. Why are you still standing at that riverbank? As your body settles deeper into rest, you might notice how acceptance actually feels in your muscles, your nervous system, your breath. There is a letting go that happens when you stop bracing against what is. Your shoulders can finally drop. Your jaw can relax from holding back words that don't need to be said. Your heart can slow from the fast pace of trying to outrun reality. This physical relaxation isn't separate from spiritual understanding. It is the same thing experienced differently. When the Buddha taught about pain and the end of pain, he wasn't speaking in puzzles. He was pointing to the actual lived experience of tension and release, of fighting and flowing, of pushing back, and accepting that happens in your body right here, right now. But acceptance often seems difficult because we misunderstand what it means. The mind thinks acceptance means liking everything, doing nothing, or losing the ability to change what needs changing. Master Dogen taught otherwise. He said, "You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement." This isn't a contradiction. It is the puzzle of acceptance. You can fully embrace what is while still participating in the natural flow of change and growth. Think of a river accepting the rocks in its bed. The water doesn't approve of the rocks or disapprove of them. It doesn't try to move them all at once, nor does it give up and stop flowing. It simply flows around them. And over time, with gentle patience, it shapes them. The river's acceptance allows it to do what force never could. You can learn the same flowing around the rocks in your path, the difficult feelings, the challenging people, the situations you didn't choose. Acceptance gives you the flexibility to find your way through anything without destroying yourself in the process. This is especially important as you prepare for sleep, because fighting your thoughts, your worries, your restlessness only makes them stronger. But accepting their presence, allowing them to be there without engaging, lets them naturally settle and fade. There was once a student who complained to his Zen master that he couldn't stop thinking during meditation. "These thoughts keep coming," he said, "and I can't make them stop." The master asked him to try not to think of a white elephant. Of course, the moment he tried not to think of it, the white elephant was all he could see. "You see," said the master, "the harder you try not to think something, the more power you give it. But if I simply tell you to think of a white elephant, you can do so briefly, then let the thought go naturally when your attention moves elsewhere." This teaching holds the key to both meditation and peaceful sleep. When you lie down at night and unwanted thoughts come up, worries about tomorrow, regrets about today, endless mental chatter, your instinct might be to push them away. But this pushing creates the very tension that keeps you awake. Instead, you can practice acceptance. Notice the thoughts without judgment. Admit they are there without fighting them, and return your attention gently to your breath or body. In this acceptance, they lose their grip and naturally fade away. The Zen master Huangpo taught, "The foolish reject what they see, not what they think. The wise reject what they think, not what they see." This points to a huge shift in how we relate to our inner experience. When difficult feelings come up, sadness, fear, anger, loneliness, we often try to reject the feeling itself. We want it gone. But what if the feeling isn't the problem? What if the problem is our thoughts about the feeling, our fighting against it, our stories about what it means? Imagine you are lying in bed and worry comes up about something happening tomorrow. The worry itself is just energy moving through your body, perhaps a fast heart, tight chest, busy thoughts. This energy has a natural lifespan like a wave that rises and falls. But when you fight it, when you tell yourself, "I shouldn't feel worried," or "this is terrible," or "I'll never fall asleep feeling like this," you add mental fuel to the emotional fire. The original worry might last a few minutes, but your thoughts about it can keep you awake for hours. Acceptance changes this completely. When worry comes up, you can meet it with curiosity rather than fighting. "Oh, worry is here. I can feel it in my chest, in my thoughts. This is what worry feels like in this moment." You are not liking the worry or inviting it to stay forever. You are simply admitting what is actually happening without adding the extra layer of fighting that creates pain. The Buddha compared the mind to a wild monkey jumping from branch to branch, never still. But he also taught that this monkey nature isn't the problem. Trying to cage the monkey is. Acceptance means letting the monkey be a monkey while realizing that you are not the monkey. You are the space where the monkey plays. The awareness that watches its activity without being disturbed by it. This understanding can change your relationship with sleeplessness itself. How many nights have you lain awake frustrated that you couldn't fall asleep, worried about being tired tomorrow, angry at your mind for being active when you want it quiet? This fighting against sleeplessness creates a double pain. The original being awake, plus the struggle against it. But what happens when you accept that this might be a wakeful night? When you stop demanding that sleep come on your schedule? Often strangely, this acceptance of being awake allows sleep to arrive naturally. When you are no longer fighting being awake, when you can lie peacefully in bed without the urgent need for sleep, your nervous system relaxes. The very peace you find in accepting being awake creates the conditions for sleep to come spontaneously. There is a beautiful teaching from the Zen tradition about a master who was asked, "What is Buddha?" He replied, 3 pounds of flax. The student was confused by this seemingly boring answer, but the master was pointing to something deep. Buddha nature, your enlightened, peaceful, accepting nature, isn't found in some special spiritual experience. It is here in the most ordinary moments, in the simple acceptance of what is right in front of you. Right now, your Buddha nature is accepting the weight of your body against the bed, the temperature of the air on your skin, the sounds around you, the thoughts in your mind. It is not trying to improve any of it or push any of it away. This natural accepting awareness is always present, always peaceful, always enough. When you recognize yourself as this acceptance rather than as the one who struggles against experience, peace is immediate and easy. Master Linji taught, there is nothing special to do, just be ordinary, relieve yourself, wash your face, put on your clothes, and eat your food. When tired, sleep. This ordinariness is the heart of acceptance. Sleep when tired, eat when hungry, rest when rest is needed. Feel what you feel without making it into a spiritual problem to be solved. But the mind wants to complicate the simplicity. It wants to analyze why you are tired, whether you should be tired, how to make your tiredness better. It creates stories about your emotions, judgments about your thoughts, fighting against your natural rhythms. Acceptance cuts through all of this mental noise and returns you to what is actually happening. You are tired. Your body wants to rest. This is enough information. Sometimes acceptance means letting go of the day's events that your mind wants to replay endlessly. The conversation that didn't go well, the decision you are second-guessing, the person who misunderstood you. These mental movies play on repeat, keeping you wired when your body is ready for rest. But each replay is a form of fighting against the fact that the day is over, that the events already happened, that replaying them changes nothing. Acceptance means allowing the day to be complete as it is. The successes and mistakes, the moments of clarity and confusion, the times you were kind and the times you fell short, all of it can be acknowledged and released. Not because it doesn't matter, but because holding onto it serves no purpose. Now the day has taught you what it came to teach. Now you can let it rest. There is a Zen saying, "You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement." But tonight as you settle into sleep, perhaps the focus can be on the first part. You are perfect as you are. Perfect. Not in the sense of flawless, but in the sense of complete whole, enough exactly as you find yourself in this moment. The improvement can wait until tomorrow. Right now, there is only this breath, this body, this moment of rest. This acceptance doesn't make you passive or resigned. It makes you available to respond wisely rather than react blindly. When you stop fighting what is, you can see clearly what needs attention and what needs to be left alone. You can act from peace rather than panic, from love rather than fear, from wisdom rather than reacting. As sleep approaches, this wisdom translates into letting your body do what it knows how to do. Your heart knows how to beat without your supervision. Your breath knows how to flow without your management. Your mind knows how to quiet itself when you stop trying to force silence. Trust this natural intelligence. Accept that your body-mind system has grown over millions of years to know how to rest and restore itself. The deepest acceptance is accepting yourself as you are right now. Not the self you think you should be, not the self you were yesterday or hope to be tomorrow, but this self here now, with all its flaws and beauty. This self that has carried you through every challenge you have ever faced. This self that deserves rest, peace, and gentle, loving kindness. Let this acceptance wash through you now like warm water, softening any remaining tension, melting away any leftover fighting. You don't have to be different to deserve peace. You don't have to solve all your problems to earn rest. You don't have to understand everything to be worthy of sleep. You are already worthy, already whole, already home in this moment of accepting what is. When you accept what is, when you stop fighting this moment, something remarkable happens. You begin to notice that this moment itself never stays the same. Your breath changes from breathing in to breathing out. Your thoughts come up and go away. Sounds come and go. Even your body shifts and settles constantly. Everything is moving, flowing, transforming, and you are part of this endless dance of change. The Buddha's very first teaching after waking up was about how things change. All made things change, he said. Work out your freedom with effort. But the Zen tradition takes this further, showing us that change isn't something to put up with or rise above. It is the very nature of freedom itself. When you stop trying to make permanent what is naturally flowing, you find the peace that exists within change itself. Right now, as you rest, your body is showing this truth perfectly. Your heartbeat changes with each breath. Your muscle tension releases in waves. Your mind moves from thought to thought, like a river flowing over rocks. Nothing stays exactly the same for even a moment. And this constant change is not chaos. It is the smart dance of life, renewing itself endlessly. There was once a student who asked Master Joshu, "What is the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the West?" A classic Zen question about the deepest truth. Joshu answered, "The oak tree in the garden." The student was confused and pressed him, "Don't teach me by means of objects." Joshu said, "I am not teaching you by means of objects." Then what is the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the West? The oak tree in the garden. This exchange points to something deep about change. The oak tree is never the same tree from moment to moment. Its leaves grow and fall. Its bark changes. Its roots reach out. Its shape shifts with each season. Yet it is completely itself in each moment of change. The tree doesn't fight spring or hold on to summer. It doesn't fight autumn or fear winter. It flows with the seasons. And in this flowing, it expresses its deepest nature. You are like this tree. Not the fixed, solid self you sometimes imagine yourself to be, but a flowing process of becoming, always changing, yet somehow always truly you. The fighting comes when you try to freeze yourself in place, when you cling to who you were yesterday, or demand promises about who you will be tomorrow. But your true nature, like the tree, is found in the flowing itself. This understanding brings huge relief, especially as you prepare for sleep. How much energy do you spend each day trying to keep things the same, trying to be the same person you were this morning, trying to hold your mood steady, your thoughts organized, your life predictable? It is tiring because it goes against the natural flow of change that wants to move through you. But when you allow yourself to flow with change, when you stop trying to control your inner weather, something beautiful happens. You might feel sad for a few moments and then notice joy coming up. You might feel restless, then suddenly peaceful. You might have busy thoughts, then find your mind naturally settling into stillness. Each state comes and goes like clouds in the sky. And you don't have to do anything to manage this process. You simply let it flow. The Zen master Dogen wrote about being time, the understanding that you are not separate from time, but are the very process of time unfolding itself. Each moment you experience is both completely new and completely you. The you of this breath is slightly different from the you of the last breath, yet both are equally real expressions of who you are deep down. This might sound abstract, but you can feel it directly in your body right now. Notice how your physical feelings are constantly shifting. Perhaps your left foot feels different than your right. Maybe there is a warmth here, a coolness there. These feelings come and change without your permission or control. And this changing itself is the aliveness you call your body. When you try to fix these feelings to make them permanent or push them away, you create tension. But when you let them flow naturally, you feel more alive, more present, more at peace. There is a story of a Zen monk who was dying. His students gathered around, deeply sad about losing their beloved teacher. Seeing their sadness, the old monk laughed gently. "Why are you crying?" he asked. "I have been dying since the moment I was born. Every breath has been practice for this letting go. Now I simply take the next step in a dance I have been dancing my whole life." This monk understood something that brings deep peace, that death is not the opposite of life, but its natural completion. And if death is natural, then all the smaller endings that happen throughout each day are natural too. The end of childhood, the end of relationships, the end of dreams that don't happen, the end of each phase of life, even the end of each day as you give in to sleep. Sleep itself is a beautiful teaching about change. Each night, you practice letting go of the day's identity, releasing your grip on thoughts and worries, allowing your mind to dissolve into something deeper. You don't know exactly when sleep will come or what dreams might come up. You give in to a process beyond your control, and in that letting go, you find rest. But often we fight this nightly practice of letting go. We try to take the day's worries to bed with us. We replay conversations, plan tomorrow's activities, hold on to the day's tensions in our muscles. This fighting against sleep's invitation to let go keeps us awake and restless. What if you could approach sleep as the monks approach death, as a natural completion, a graceful letting go, a next step in the dance of living? Master Ikkyu, a wild and unusual Zen poet, wrote, "Having nothing, nothing can be lost." This points to the ultimate freedom found in embracing change. When you truly understand that nothing can be permanently held on to, not your youth, not your relationships, not your achievements, not even your problems, then you stop living in the tiring grip of trying to maintain and control everything. Instead, you learn to love things precisely because they are temporary. The cherry blossom is beautiful, not despite its brief blooming, but because of it. If cherry blossoms lasted forever, would we stop in such wonder to appreciate them? Their fleeting nature makes each moment of their flowering precious. Your life, your experiences, your very breath carry the same value because they too are temporary, unrepeatable, here now and then changed. You might notice fighting coming up against this teaching about change. The mind wants promises of permanence, something solid to hold on to. But this very desire for permanence is what creates pain. It is like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. But when you hold your hands gently, cupped but relaxed, the water can rest there peacefully for a time before naturally flowing onward. Let yourself practice this gentle holding right now with whatever comes up in your mind. If worry comes, hold it lightly, knowing it will pass. If peace comes, receive it gratefully, knowing it too will change. If thoughts come, let them move through like fish swimming through clear water. Nothing needs to be grabbed or pushed away. Everything is flowing naturally, and you are the space where this flowing happens. There is a beautiful Zen teaching story about a master who was asked what happens after death. Instead of answering with rules or philosophy, he said, "I don't know." His student was shocked. "But master, you are enlightened. Surely you must know what happens after death." The master smiled and said, "Yes, I am enlightened. That is why I know that I don't know." This not knowing is not ignorance. It is wisdom, It is the recognition that life is constantly creating itself anew in ways that cannot be predicted or controlled. Your next breath, your next thought, your next experience, all coming up fresh from the mystery of this moment. When you stop demanding to know what is coming next, when you stop trying to manage the unknown future, you can rest more deeply in the present. This is especially important as you settle into sleep. The mind often stays active because it is trying to solve tomorrow today, trying to figure out all the unknowns, trying to control what cannot be controlled. But sleep is an invitation into not knowing, into trusting the unknown, into giving in to the mystery of rest and healing. The Tao Te Ching teaches that the softest things in the world overcome the hardest. Water shapes rock not through force, but through gentle patience. Your breath shapes your body not by pushing, but by rhythmic flowing. In the same way, when you flow with life's changes rather than fight them, you become like water, soft yet powerful, yielding yet unstoppable. You can feel this power in your own experience of change. Think of a difficult period you have lived through, perhaps loss, sickness, heartbreak, or failure. At the time, it might have felt permanent, overwhelming, impossible to survive. Yet here you are, having flowed through that experience and come out changed by it. You didn't overcome it through force. You survived it by continuing to breathe, to live, to flow with what was happening even when you couldn't understand it. This same flowing is available to you right now with whatever challenges you are carrying. The work stress, the relationship difficulties, the health concerns, the money worries, all of these are also temporary, also flowing, also part of the larger dance of change that is your life. They don't need to be solved tonight. They don't need to be carried in your muscles as you rest. Like clouds passing through the sky, they can be admitted and allowed to move through your awareness without staying there. Master Bankei taught about the unborn Buddha mind, the awareness that was never born and can never die, the space where all experiences come up and go away. This awareness doesn't change even as everything within it changes constantly. You might think of it as the screen on which movies play. The screen itself is untouched by whether the movie is funny or sad, action or romance. It simply allows all experiences to show themselves without being changed by their content. You have access to this unchanging awareness right now. Even as your body shifts, your breath flows, and your thoughts come up and dissolve. This awareness doesn't fight change. It makes change possible by providing the space where change can happen. When you rest in this awareness instead of identifying with the changing contents, you find a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances remaining the same. This shift in identity from the waves to the ocean, from the thoughts to the awareness of thoughts, from the changing to the unchanging space that allows change is perhaps the deepest change possible. And it doesn't require years of practice or spiritual achievement. It is available in any moment when you stop trying to control the flow and instead recognize yourself as the space where the flow happens. Feel this spaciousness now as your body prepares for sleep. You are not just the physical feelings that come up and change. You are the awareness that knows these feelings. You are not just the thoughts that come and go. You are the space where thoughts appear and melt away. You are not just the emotions that flow through you. You are the peace that remains present through all emotional weather. This recognition doesn't make you detached or disconnected from life. Instead, it allows you to participate more fully in life's flowing dance because you are no longer afraid of the dance's constant changes. You can love completely because you are not trying to make love permanent. You can engage fully because you are not attached to specific results. You can rest deeply because you are not fighting the natural cycles of activity and stillness. The seasons teach us this wisdom naturally. Spring doesn't try to hold on to winter or rush towards summer. It simply expresses spring fully completely, without holding back. Summer doesn't fight autumn's approach. It gives everything to being summer until it is time to change. Autumn doesn't cling to its leaves or fight the coming winter. It lets go beautifully, gracefully, knowing that this release is part of the larger rhythm of renewal. You too are part of this seasonal wisdom. You have times of growth and times of rest, times of activity and times of stillness, times of clarity and times of confusion. Each phase has its own gifts, its own teachings, its own place in the larger cycle of your becoming. When you stop fighting your current season and instead learn to live in it fully, you find that each phase of life has its own completeness, its own beauty, its own peace. As you prepare for the nightly season of sleep, let yourself appreciate this natural rhythm. Your body knows how to move from being awake to resting, from moving to being still, from the day's work to the night's healing. You don't have to manage this transition or force it to happen. You simply allow your natural rhythms to carry you like a leaf carried by wind, with no resistance to where the flow takes you. This trust in natural process, this willingness to flow with, rather than fight against life's constant changes, is the deepest wisdom of change. It is not that everything changes. It is that you are the changing itself, the flowing itself, the dancing itself. And in this recognition, fighting melts away naturally. Not because you force it away, but because there is no longer anyone there to fight. There is just the flowing and the peace that flows with it, carrying you now into whatever comes up next. As you rest in the flowing nature of change, as you stop trying to hold on to what naturally changes, something tender begins to come out. When you are no longer fighting against the river of experience, when you are no longer tiring yourself out trying to control what cannot be controlled, you find that your natural response to life is not hardness but softness, not anger but gentleness, not fighting but kindness. This kindness isn't something you have to make or force. It comes up naturally when the walls of fighting come down, like a spring that bubbles up from underground when the rocks blocking its path are removed. Kindness flows easily when you stop fighting what is, and this flowing kindness changes everything. How you meet your own struggles, how you respond to others' pain, how you move through a world that often seems harsh and demanding. The Buddha taught that all beings want to be happy and free from pain. Yet somehow we have learned to meet pain with more pain. Pain with more pain. Difficulty with fighting that only makes things more difficult. But there is another way, a path that the great Zen masters walked, meeting every experience, even the painful ones, with the same tenderness you might offer a scared child or a hurt animal. Right now, as your body settles and your breath naturally slows, notice if there are any places where you are being harsh with yourself. Perhaps you are judging your busy thoughts or criticizing your inability to relax completely. Maybe you are carrying guilt about something that happened today, or worry about tomorrow. These inner voices of criticism and worry are forms of self-violence, ways you fight your own human experience. What would it feel like to speak to yourself right now the way you would speak to your best friend who was struggling? What would it sound like to offer yourself the same patience and understanding you would naturally give to someone you love who is having a hard time sleeping? This shift from self-fighting to self-kindness isn't just nice, it is wisdom. It realizes that fighting yourself is like trying to wrestle with your own shadow. There once was a student who went to a Zen master complaining bitterly about his meditation practice. "I sit every day," he said, "but my mind is full of distracting thoughts. I get angry at my wandering attention. I fall asleep. I move constantly. I am the worst meditator who ever lived." The master listened patiently, then asked, "When you have a guest in your home who is tired and troubled, do you yell at them and demand they be different?" "Of course not," the student replied. "I would offer them tea, make them comfortable, listen to their troubles with kindness." The master smiled. "Then why do you not treat your own mind as kindly as you would treat a troubled guest?" This story points to the heart of kind not fighting. Your thoughts, emotions, and physical feelings are like guests visiting the space of your awareness. Some guests are pleasant, peaceful thoughts, comfortable feelings, ease in the body. Others are more challenging, worry, sadness, tension, restlessness. But whether the guests are welcome or unwelcome, the host remains kind, open, accepting. The space of your awareness has room for all visitors, and it meets each one with the same gentle welcome. This doesn't mean you have to like every experience or invite difficult states to stay longer. It means you stop fighting with what is already here. If worry is present, you don't have to welcome worry, but you can welcome yourself, the one who is feeling worry, with kindness. You can hold yourself gently in the middle of whatever is coming up, the way a loving parent holds a child who is scared or upset. Feel this quality of gentle holding available to you right now. Whatever you are feeling, peace or restlessness, clarity or confusion, comfort or discomfort, can be held in the same tender awareness. Your breath continues to flow in and out, regardless of what you are feeling. Your heart continues to beat whether your thoughts are calm or busy. There is something in you that remains steady and caring through all the changing weather of experience. This steady kindness becomes especially important when dealing with others. How often during your day did you meet someone else's bad mood with fighting back? Their criticism with defense, their worry with impatience. When we are not at peace with our own difficult emotions, we automatically fight them in others. But when you learn to meet your own storms with kindness, you naturally become someone who can sit peacefully with others' storms as well. Master Thich Nhat Hanh taught about hugging meditation, literally embracing others, but more deeply embracing all of life's experiences with the same tenderness. When someone is angry, instead of meeting their anger with your own anger, you can silently embrace their pain. When someone is critical, instead of defending yourself, you can hold space for the pain that drives their criticism. This doesn't mean being passive or allowing bad treatment. It means responding from love rather than reacting from fear. There is a deep Zen story about a master who was falsely accused of being the father of a child. When the angry parents brought the baby to him, demanding that he take responsibility, he simply said, "Is that so?" and accepted the child with complete calm. He cared for the baby tenderly for several months until the real father admitted the truth. When the parents returned to take back their child, apologizing profusely for their mistake, the master again simply said, "Is that so?" and handed back the baby without a trace of anger. This story demonstrates kind not fighting at its deepest level. The master didn't fight being falsely accused. He didn't fight caring for a child that wasn't his. He didn't fight letting the child go when the truth came out. He met each situation with the same calmness, the same willingness to respond with love, regardless of how he was being treated. His peace didn't depend on others admitting his innocence or appreciating his kindness. You might think this level of not fighting is impossible or even bad. Shouldn't we defend ourselves when wrongly accused? Shouldn't we feel angry when treated badly? But the master's response wasn't about pushing down natural human reactions. It was about not adding fighting to whatever was already happening. He felt what he felt, but he didn't create extra pain by fighting against the situation. This wisdom applies even to the smallest interactions in your daily life. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a store clerk is rude, when a family member criticizes your choices, in each moment, you have an opportunity to practice kind not fighting. Not by becoming a doormat or failing to respond appropriately, but by meeting the situation from your centered, peaceful nature rather than from reactive fighting. As you settle deeper into rest tonight, you might notice how much energy you've been spending in subtle fighting against the people in your life. The family member who doesn't understand you, the coworker who annoys you, the friend who disappointed you, the stranger who was thoughtless. Each judgment, each mental criticism, each replay of how they should have acted differently is a form of fighting that lives in your body as tension, in your mind as upset, in your heart as separation from the peace that belongs to you. Kind not fighting invites you to release these mental loads, not because others don't need to change or grow, but because your fighting against them changes nothing except your own inner state. The person who cut you off in traffic is already home, unaware of your continued annoyance. The rude clerk has moved on to other customers while you replay the interaction. Your fighting hurts only you, and your release of that fighting heals only you. But that healing is deep. The Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught a beautiful practice for transforming anger through kindness. When someone acts in a way that triggers your fighting, instead of focusing on their behavior, you look deeper to see their pain. The angry person is in pain. The critical person is in pain. The thoughtless person is in pain. When you recognize this pain, your heart naturally softens. You stop taking their actions personally and start seeing them as expressions of their own unhealed hurt. This doesn't excuse harmful behavior or mean you should tolerate bad treatment. Boundaries are an expression of kindness, both self-kindness and kindness for others who need clear limits. But even boundaries can be set from love rather than fighting. You can say no without anger. Leave without hatred. Protect yourself without making others into enemies. This is the middle way of kind action, neither aggressive nor passive, but responsive from wisdom and love. There is a story of a Zen monk walking through a forest when he met a fierce tiger. Instead of running or fighting, he slowly backed up until he reached the edge of a cliff. With the tiger coming closer and nowhere to go, he grabbed a vine and lowered himself over the edge. As he hung there, he noticed two mice, one white, one black, beginning to chew through the vine. In this moment of complete danger, hanging between the tiger above and the unknown below, he noticed a wild strawberry growing from the cliff face. He picked it and ate it, marveling at its extraordinary sweetness. This story captures the heart of finding peace in the middle of difficulty without fighting. The monk didn't pretend the danger wasn't real or try to wish away the real threat. But he also didn't add mental pain to the already challenging situation. In the middle of uncertainty and fear, he remained present enough to taste the sweetness that was available even there. This is kind not fighting, meeting reality as it is without adding the extra layer of mental fighting that turns pain into suffering. You can practice this same presence with the tigers in your own life. The difficult diagnosis, the relationship challenges, the money pressures, the work stresses. None of these situations require your fighting to make them real. They are already real. But your fighting adds an extra layer of pain that serves no useful purpose. When you stop fighting what is already happening, you often discover unexpected sweetness hidden within the challenge, moments of connection, opportunities for growth, appreciation for what you still have. This kind approach to difficulty extends to your relationship with your own body and mind as you prepare for sleep. If physical discomfort comes up, instead of tensing around it or demanding that it disappear, you can breathe into it with kindness. If worrying thoughts appear, instead of fighting them or judging yourself for having them, you can admit them the way you might admit clouds passing through the sky. Oh, worrying thoughts are here. That is what minds do sometimes. The Buddha spoke of the two arrows of pain. The first arrow is the actual experience, physical pain, emotional difficulty, challenging circumstances. This first arrow is often unavoidable. It is part of being human. But the second arrow is our fighting against the first arrow, our anger about being in pain, our fear about feeling afraid, our frustration about being frustrated. This second arrow is optional, and it is usually the source of our deepest pain. Kind not fighting teaches us to feel the first arrow fully without shooting the second one. When sadness comes up, we feel sad without being sad about being sad. When fear comes, we admit the fear without adding fear about the fear. When pain is present, we experience the pain without creating extra pain through fighting. This isn't numbness or denial. It is tender-hearted courage that can meet any experience with love. Master Dogen taught that practice and enlightenment are one. This means that the very act of meeting your experience with kindness right here in this moment is already the awakened response. You don't need to perfect this practice or wait until you have mastered not fighting to experience its benefits. Every moment of choosing kindness over criticism, softness over hardness, acceptance over fighting is itself a moment of waking up. Feel this waking up available to you right now as you rest. The waking up isn't a dramatic change. It is the simple shift from fighting this moment to embracing it. From judging your experience to loving yourself in the middle of whatever you are experiencing. From demanding that tonight be different to finding peace within tonight, exactly as it is. This kind of awareness also transforms how you relate to sleep itself. Instead of lying in bed frustrated if sleep doesn't come immediately, you can practice loving kindness toward your wakeful mind. Instead of judging yourself for being tired, you can appreciate your body's honest signals about what it needs. Instead of fighting the natural process of falling asleep, you can give into it with trust and thanks. There is a beautiful teaching from the Tibetan tradition about exchanging self and other, taking on others' pain and giving away your own happiness. While this might sound strange, it points to something deep about the nature of kindness. When your heart is truly open, you realize there is no solid wall between self and other. The pain you see in the world is also your pain. The healing you offer others is also your own healing. This connection means that every act of kindness toward yourself, toward others, toward life itself, heals something in the world. When you stop fighting your own difficult emotions, you become someone who can hold space for others' difficult emotions. When you meet your own fears with tenderness, you naturally become a source of courage for others who are afraid. When you find peace in the middle of your own challenges, you shine that peace into a world that desperately needs it. Master Bankei taught about the unborn Buddha mind, the awareness that recognizes all experiences as temporary visitors in an unchanging space of love. This loving awareness doesn't try to fix what comes up in it or push anything away. It simply loves unconditionally, the way the sun shines on both flowers and weeds, the way the earth supports both saints and sinners, the way your own heart continues to beat whether you are happy or sad, peaceful or anxious. As you settle more deeply into this recognition, notice how your whole body can relax when held in unconditional love. The tension in your shoulders softens when you stop demanding that you be different than you are. Your breathing deepens when you accept your current state rather than trying to force a different one. Your mind begins to quiet when you stop criticizing your thoughts and instead meet them with patient kindness. This is the natural result of kind not fighting. Not forced relaxation, but the natural peace that comes when the war with yourself ends. You don't have to become someone else to deserve this peace. You don't have to solve all your problems or perfect your spiritual practice. You simply have to stop fighting the one who is already here, this imperfect, beautiful, struggling, seeking human being who deserves love not because of achievements or worthiness, but simply because love is your nature. The great Zen poet Ryokan wrote, "What shall be my gift to the world? The blowing wind, the moving water." This points to the ultimate kindness, leaving no trace of fighting in your wake, meeting each moment so completely that you flow with it like wind, like water, offering no friction to life's natural movement. When you die, whether tonight in sleep or years from now in final rest, what will you leave behind? Not your struggles and fighting, but the love you shared, the peace you showed, the kindness you offered to a world in need of healing. Let this be your practice now as sleep approaches. To love so completely that fighting becomes impossible. To be so tender with yourself and your experience that fighting feels strange. To trust so deeply in the natural process of rest and healing that letting go becomes as natural as breathing. In this letting go, In this complete not fighting to what is, you discover that peace was never something to achieve. It was always something to remember, something to return to, something you are when all the fighting finally ends. Rest now in this memory. Let your body be held by the same kindness that holds the whole universe. Let your mind be embraced by the same love that embraces all beings everywhere. You are not alone in your struggles, and you are not separate from the peace that is beyond understanding. You are that peace temporarily forgetting itself in the dream of fighting, now waking up to its own eternal loving nature. In the tender space of kind not fighting, as your heart learns to meet all experience with love, you arrive at the most practical and deep question. How do you carry this understanding into the ordinary moments of life? How do you live from this place of flowing acceptance when morning comes and the world demands answers, decisions, actions? How do you mix these deep teachings into the simple, sometimes messy reality of being human? The answer lies not in being perfect, but in practice. Not in never fighting again, but in catching the fighting more quickly when it comes up. Not in staying peaceful all the time, but in remembering how to return to peace when you have temporarily forgotten. Living without fighting isn't a place you reach once and stay at forever. It is a way of being that you choose moment by moment, breath by breath, like coming home to yourself again and again. Right now, as you rest in this quiet space between waking and sleeping, you have the perfect chance to feel what this mixing actually means. Notice that you don't have to maintain any special state or hold on to any special idea. You don't have to remember everything you have heard or use all the teachings at once. You simply rest in the natural ease that comes when you stop fighting what is. This ease, this simple peace of not fighting, is always available to you, not as something to earn, but as something to notice. The Zen master Yunmen taught his students about everyday mind. When asked about the deepest spiritual truth, he would point to ordinary activities: drinking tea, walking in the garden, washing bowls. The sacred isn't separate from the everyday. It is found by bringing complete attention to whatever you are doing, meeting each moment without the cover of fighting or looking for something else. Living without fighting means bringing this quality of attention to everything, not just to meditation or quiet thinking, but to traffic jams and difficult conversations, to work deadlines and family matters, to the 1,000 small moments that make up each day. But how do you remember to be present when life moves so quickly? How do you catch fighting before it becomes a big internal war? How do you respond wisely instead of reacting automatically? These questions point to what the Buddhist tradition calls mindfulness, but not mindfulness as another job to add to your busy life. Mindfulness as a returning, a gentle waking up to what is actually happening right here, right now. The breath becomes your best teacher in this practice. Throughout your day, your breath continues its natural rhythm whether you pay attention to it or not. But when you do return to the breath in moments of stress, decision, or confusion, you instantly reconnect with the present moment. You step out of the mental story about what is happening and into the direct experience of what is. And in that direct experience, fighting has no place to stand because there is no story for it to grab onto. There is a story of a student who asked Master Joshu how to practice Zen while living a busy life with a family. Joshu answered, "When you are chopping wood, chop wood. When you are carrying water, carry water." The student argued, "But Master, doesn't everyone do that?" Joshu smiled and said, "No, when most people are chopping wood, they are thinking about carrying water. When they are carrying water, they are thinking about chopping wood." This simple teaching holds the entire path of mixing these ideas into life. Living without fighting means being completely where you are, doing what you are doing, without mental comments about where you should be or what you should be doing instead. It means washing dishes with full attention to the warm water and soap bubbles instead of mentally practicing tomorrow's presentation. It means listening to your friends speak without planning what you will say next. It means feeling sadness when it comes up without immediately planning how to feel better. As your body continues to relax into sleep, notice how this quality of attention naturally comes up when you stop trying to be somewhere else. Your head doesn't fight the pillow. Your muscles don't fight the bed. Your breath doesn't argue with the night air. There is a natural settling that happens when you stop the small struggle against what is. This same settling is available throughout your waking life. When you find yourself caught in mental loops of worry or replay, you can return to the simple reality of what is actually happening right now. Are your feet touching the ground? Is air moving in and out of your lungs? Are your eyes seeing what is in front of you? This basic grounding in present moment reality is not a trick to practice. It is a coming home to what has always been true. The mixing of not fighting also changes how you meet difficulty when it comes up. Instead of immediately jumping to, "How do I fix this?" or "Why is this happening to me?" you learn to pause in the space before reacting. In that pause, you can ask different questions. What is this moment asking of me? How can I meet this with attention? What would love do here? There was a Zen monk who worked as a temple gardener. One morning, he discovered that a storm had destroyed his carefully tended vegetable garden. Plants pulled up, months of work scattered by wind and rain. A younger monk found him standing quietly among the ruins and asked, "Aren't you upset? All your hard work is gone." The gardener smiled gently and said, "The storm taught the garden a new way to grow. I am curious to see what comes up." This is the heart of living without fighting, meeting change, loss, and unexpected challenges with curiosity rather than anger. The gardener didn't pretend the damage wasn't real or immediately put on a happy face. He admitted what had happened and then asked the deeper question, "What now?" This is wisdom in action, not the wisdom that knows all the answers, but the wisdom that remains open to what life is teaching. You can practice this same openness with the smaller interruptions that come up each day, the meeting that runs long, the phone call that interrupts your planned evening, the headache that appears without warning. Instead of fighting being your first response, you can try curiosity. What is this moment offering? What can you learn about yourself by watching your first reaction? How can you move with this change instead of against it? This doesn't mean becoming lazy or failing to take appropriate action when action is needed. The gardener in the story didn't just leave his garden in ruins. He began the work of replanting, but he did so from acceptance rather than fighting, from wisdom rather than reacting. He worked with what was rather than complaining about what had been. Mixing these ideas also means recognizing that you will forget these teachings. Many times you will find yourself caught in old patterns of fighting, lost in mental stories, reacting instead of responding. This too is part of the path, not a mistake. The Buddha himself called this beginner's mind, approaching each moment of waking up as if for the first time without the heavy load of having to maintain some perfect state of wisdom. Master Dogen taught that practice and enlightenment are one. This means that the very moment you notice you have been lost in fighting and choose to return to being present, that noticing itself is waking up. You don't have to wait until you have mastered not fighting to experience its benefits. Each tiny return to awareness, each small choice to soften instead of harden, each breath taken in acceptance rather than struggle. These are not steps toward peace. They are peace itself showing through you. Feel this truth now as your body prepares for sleep. You don't have to perfect anything to rest. You don't have to solve all your problems to be worthy of peaceful sleep. You don't have to understand everything to let your mind naturally settle into the deeper rhythms of rest. Your worthiness to rest is not earned through good behavior or spiritual achievement. It is built into your very being. The practice of mixing these ideas becomes especially important in your relationships with others. When someone acts in a way that triggers your old patterns of fighting, when they are late, when they don't understand, when they seem to be making choices you wouldn't make, you have the chance to pause before reacting. In that pause, you can remember that their actions are coming from their own complicated mix of habits, fears, hopes, and beliefs. You can choose to respond to the person rather than just reacting to their behavior. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat or failing to set appropriate boundaries. Sometimes love requires saying no. Sometimes wisdom means walking away. Sometimes compassion looks like confronting harmful behavior. But you can do all of these things from a place of not fighting, not because you are trying to change the other person, but because you are responding from your own clarity and care. There is a story of a Zen master who was insulted by an angry visitor. The visitor shouted blame and harsh words, trying to provoke the master into an argument. When the yelling was finished, the master asked calmly, "If someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The visitor, confused by the question, replied, "It would still belong to the person who offered it." The master smiled and said, "You have offered me anger and insults, but I choose not to accept them. Please keep them for yourself." This story shows the freedom that comes from not fighting. You don't have to take on other people's emotional states as your own. You don't have to absorb their anger, their disappointment, their criticism. You can remain open and loving while also keeping your own center of peace. This isn't cold distance. It is warm, wise presence that sees clearly without getting tangled up. As you settle more deeply into rest, you might notice how your own emotions become like the master in this story. Instead of being overwhelmed by whatever comes up, worry, sadness, frustration, excitement, you can watch these feelings with the same calm presence. You don't reject them or try to make them go away, but you also don't identify completely with them. They become weather patterns moving through the sky of your mind, temporary and changing, worthy of notice, but not of giving in to their drama. The mixing of not fighting also changes how you approach your goals and dreams. You can still work toward things you care about, still make plans and take action, but you do so with a lighter grip on results. The Buddha described this as right effort, energy applied with wisdom rather than desperate need for results. Imagine planting a garden. You prepare the soil with care, plant the seeds with attention, water, and care for the growing plants with dedication. This is effort, but it is easy effort aligned with natural process rather than fighting against it. You can't force the seeds to grow faster by pulling on the sprouts. You can't make the sun shine or the rain fall on your schedule, but you can show up consistently, do what is yours to do, and trust the larger process of growth that is beyond your control. This is how you can approach all of life's tasks. When fighting melts away, you engage fully with whatever is in front of you while holding results lightly. You care deeply while staying free. You work with real promise while remaining flexible about how things unfold. There was once a writer who spent years perfecting his art. Students would come to learn from him, expecting to find someone obsessed with skill and exactness. Instead, they found a master who approached each mark with total attention, but no worry about the final result. "If I worry about whether this mark will be beautiful," he would say, "my hand becomes tight and my mind becomes small. But when I simply allow each mark to come from openness, the beauty takes care of itself." This is the secret of easy action. Not trying to control the outcome, but putting your whole being into the process. When fighting drops away, you discover that your natural state is one of natural, appropriate response to whatever life presents. You don't have to think your way through every decision or worry your way through every challenge. Wisdom comes up naturally when the mental noise of fighting quiets. Feel this natural wisdom available to you now as sleep approaches. You don't have to figure out how to fall asleep. Your body knows. You don't have to solve all tomorrow's problems before you rest. They will be there in the morning, and you will meet them with whatever clarity is available then. You don't have to understand everything that happened today or plan everything that might happen next week. You can simply be here now in this moment of natural settling into rest. Living without fighting means trusting this natural process, not just in sleep, but in all of life. Trusting that you don't have to control every part of your existence. Trusting that the same smartness that grows your hair and heals your cuts is also guiding the larger patterns of your life in ways your thinking mind can't always see or understand. This doesn't make you lazy or hopeless. You still make choices, still take responsibility, still engage with life fully, but you do so from a place of partnership with life rather than working against it. You become like water, soft and giving, yet able to carve canyons through solid rock over time. Your staying power comes not from struggle, but from alignment with what wants to happen. Master Linji taught his students about the person of no rank, the real self that exists before all the roles and identities you carry. This person needs nothing from the outside world to be complete. This person is not threatened by change or loss, because it recognizes itself as the unchanging awareness where all change happens. This person lives without fighting, because it knows itself to be life itself, flowing naturally according to conditions. You have access to this person of no rank right now. Beneath all your thoughts about who you are, all your worries about who you should become, all your stories about what you need to be happy, beneath all of this mental building lies something totally simple and peaceful. Something that has never been disturbed by any outside event. Something that is completely at ease, just being what it is. As you rest in this recognition, you might notice that the mixing you have been seeking isn't something you have to work toward. It is already happening. Each time you choose being present over mental storytelling, each time you soften instead of hardening around difficulty, each time you respond from love rather than react from fear, in these moments, you are already living without fighting. You are already free. This freedom isn't dramatic or flashy. It is quiet, small, available in the most ordinary moments. It is in the way you can wash your face in the morning with complete attention to the feeling of warm water. It is in how you can listen to a friend without planning what you will say next. It is in the ability to feel sad without making sadness wrong. To experience change without demanding permanence. To live fully without needing life to be other than it is. The great Zen teacher Bankei spoke of the unborn Buddha mind, the awareness that has never come into being and can never be destroyed. This awareness is your true nature, and it is always already present. It doesn't fight anything, because it is not threatened by anything. It doesn't cling to experiences, because it is not separate from them. It doesn't struggle with life, because it is the very life that flows through all things. Tonight, as your mind naturally melts into sleep, you are practicing this same letting go that Bankei pointed to. You are releasing attachment to the thinking mind, to the body's feelings, to the day's concerns and tomorrow's plans. You are returning to the source awareness that has always been your deepest nature. And in that return, you find what you have always known, but sometimes forget. You are already whole, already free, already at peace, not because you have achieved anything or beaten fighting, but because peace is what you are when all the struggling finally stops. Rest now in this memory. Let the night hold you with the same gentleness you have learned to offer your own experience. Let sleep come as naturally as breath, as easily as the beating of your heart. You don't have to fight anything, not even fighting itself. You can simply allow this moment to be exactly as it is, and in that allowing, discover the freedom that has been waiting for you all along. Not in some distant future, but here now, in this very breath, this very heartbeat, this very moment of coming home to yourself. The path of living without fighting is not a place you arrive at once and stay at forever. It is a way of walking that you choose with each step, a way of breathing that you remember with each breath, a way of being that you return to again and again, and each return is complete in itself. Each moment of not fighting is perfect as it is. Each choice to soften rather than harden is already the wisdom you seek. There is nowhere else to go, nothing else to become, nothing else to achieve. There is only this this breath, this heartbeat, this moment of deep healing rest in what has always been true. You are life itself, flowing perfectly, without fighting, without struggle, without end. As you rest more deeply in the natural ease of not fighting, something small begins to show itself. In the spaces between thoughts, in the quiet moments when you are not trying to fill the silence with activity or thinking, there is something present that has no name, no shape, no plan. The Zen masters called this emptiness. Not the emptiness of a vacant room, but the full emptiness of endless possibility. This emptiness is not nothing. It is the fullness that appears when you stop filling every moment with mental stuff. It is what remains when you stop the constant talking that usually fills your inner space. Right now, as you settle into rest, you can sense this spaciousness opening around your thoughts. Like clouds parting to show the sky that was always there, your awareness begins to recognize its own huge, empty nature. There was once a student who came to the great Master Huangpo, seeking the deepest teaching of Buddhism. "Master," he said, "please give me the ultimate truth." Huangpo stayed silent for a long time. The student waited, growing increasingly uncomfortable with the silence. Finally, he spoke again. "Master, I asked for your teaching. Why don't you answer?" Huangpo smiled gently and replied, "I have been teaching you this whole time, but you were too busy waiting for words to hear the silent speaking." This story points to something your thinking mind struggles to grasp. The deepest wisdom doesn't come packaged in ideas or explanations. It lives in the gaps between thoughts, in the space between breaths, in the stillness that exists right now as you rest. You don't have to understand emptiness with your brain. You can simply rest in it. Feel the space available to you now between the words you are hearing and your response to them. Between one breath and the next, between the last thought that passed through your mind and whatever thought might come next. In these gaps lives something more real than any mental stuff that could fill them. This is your natural state. Not empty in the sense of lacking something, but empty of the fighting that usually crowds your inner land. The Buddha taught that all unhappiness comes from trying to fill this emptiness with temporary things. We stuff it with thoughts, emotions, plans, worries, memories, hopes. We pack every moment so full of mental activity that we lose touch with the peace that is already present underneath. But emptiness isn't asking to be filled. It is asking to be recognized for what it is, the space where all experience can come and go without disturbance. Master Joshu was famous for his teaching about mu, which means no or nothing. When asked if a dog has Buddha nature, he simply said mu. Students spent years thinking about this word, trying to understand what he meant. But the teaching wasn't in the meaning of the word. It was in the empty space the word pointed to. The place where all questions melt away because there is no one left to ask them. You don't need to solve the puzzle of mu. You can simply rest in the not knowing it stands for. This not knowing is not ignorance. It is the wisdom that understands some truths can only be lived, not thought. The wisdom that recognizes peace as your natural state rather than something to be achieved. As your body continues to settle, notice how emptiness naturally appears when you stop trying to manage your experience. Your thoughts begin to space out more. The mental chatter slows down. There are longer pauses between internal comments. This isn't a sign that something is wrong or that you are getting sleepy. This is your awareness returning to its natural rhythm. In Zen, they speak of one mind, the undivided awareness that exists before it splits itself into watcher and watched, thinker and thought, fighter and what is being fought. This one mind is empty of all the divisions that usually break up your experience. It doesn't take sides. It doesn't have favorites. It simply allows everything to be exactly as it is. There is a story of two monks arguing about a flag waving in the wind. One said, "The flag is moving." The other replied, "No, the wind is moving." Their teacher heard the argument and said quietly, "Neither the flag nor the wind is moving. Your mind is moving. This teaching points to the stillness that lies under all apparent motion, the emptiness that remains unchanged while everything else flows and changes. Your mind right now might be like those arguing monks, caught up in mental movement, in the back and forth of thoughts and reactions. But you can step out of this mental movement anytime you choose, not by stopping thoughts, but by recognizing the stillness where thoughts appear. Not by controlling the wind, but by finding the place in yourself that is never disturbed by any mental weather. This empty awareness is what you truly are. Not the thoughts that come and go, not the emotions that rise and fall, not the sensations that appear and disappear. You are the space where all of these experiences happen, and this space is never touched by what passes through it. The sky isn't made wet by rain clouds. Your awareness isn't made anxious by anxious thoughts. Master Linji taught his students to find the person of no rank, the self that exists before all identities, all roles, all descriptions. This person has no resume, no history, no story to maintain. This person is empty of all the content that usually defines someone, yet this person is more real than any identity could ever be. This is who you are when you stop trying to be someone in particular. Feel this quality of empty presence available right now. You don't have to be anyone special to access it. You don't have to maintain any particular state or achieve any specific insight. You simply rest in what is here when you stop adding mental comments to your experience. This is perhaps the deepest teaching of all, that what you are looking for is not something extra to add to yourself, but something to recognize as already present. Emptiness also reveals why fighting is so useless. What is there to fight when you realize you are not separate from what you thought you were fighting against? Your anger, your sadness, your confusion, they are all coming up in the same empty space as your peace and joy. They are all made of the same basic awareness. When you recognize this, the whole drama of fighting collapses. There is nothing to push away because there is no solid wall between self and other, inside and outside. There was a master who was known for his unusual teaching methods. Students would come asking deep philosophical questions, and he would respond by pointing at flowers or laughing, or sometimes just sitting in silence. One persistent student demanded, "Master, I have been asking you about the meaning of life for months, and you never give me a straight answer." The master picked up his teacup, poured the tea onto the ground, and held up the empty cup. "Now," he said, "what is the meaning of this cup?" The student started to answer, but the master continued, "When it was full, you called it a teacup. Now that it is empty, what do you call it?" The usefulness wasn't in the tea or in the cup itself. It was in the empty space that could hold anything. This story shows the practical wisdom of emptiness. Your value doesn't come from what you contain, your thoughts, achievements, knowledge, experiences. Your value is in your ability to hold all of life's experiences without being defined by any of them. Like the empty cup, you are most useful when you are not already full of ideas about how things should be. As you rest deeper into this understanding, you might notice a deep relaxation that has nothing to do with your body getting more comfortable. It is the relaxation that comes when you stop carrying the heavy load of being someone in particular. The relief of not having to maintain a consistent picture of yourself. The peace of not having to defend or promote any identity. This doesn't make you disappear or become a blank slate. Personality still works. Likes and dislikes still come up. Choices still get made. But they come from emptiness rather than from a solid sense of self that needs protection and approval. They flow more naturally, more properly, with less need for a certain outcome and less fear of making mistakes. The great Master Dogen wrote about just sitting. Zazen that has no goal, no technique, no achievement to reach, just the pure activity of sitting, empty of plans. This pointing toward goalless practice reveals something essential about emptiness. It is not something you grow or develop, It is what you are when you stop growing and developing. It is what remains when all effort stops. You can practice this same goalless awareness right now as you rest, not trying to fall asleep, not trying to stay awake, not trying to have ideas, not trying to stop thoughts, just resting in the empty awareness that needs nothing from this moment except what is already here. This is perhaps the deepest form of not fighting even your own spiritual searching. In this empty space, you begin to understand what the Zen masters meant when they spoke of ordinary mind, not a special state of mind, but the simple awareness that is present right now without any change or improvement. The mind that sees without a plan, hears without judgment, feels without fighting. This ordinary mind is special only because it is so rare for people to recognize it as their natural state. There is a famous conversation between two Zen masters. The first asked, "What is Buddha?" The second replied, 3 pounds of flax. The first master was pointing to the habit of making enlightenment into something special, something other than ordinary experience. The second master was pointing to the holy nature of everything, even something as plain as 3 pounds of flax. Buddha nature isn't hidden in some special experience. It is present in the most ordinary moments when awareness rests empty of expectations about what spiritual experience should look like. This ordinariness of emptiness is deeply restful. You don't have to work to keep it or worry about losing it. It is not a state that comes and goes based on your spiritual performance. It is the constant background of all experience, as present when you are confused as when you are clear, as available when you are upset as when you are calm. Feel this steadiness now, beneath whatever thoughts are present, beneath whatever physical feelings are coming up, beneath whatever emotions might be flowing. There is something unchanged, unmoving, untroubled. This is your safe place, not because you retreat to it, but because you recognize you have never actually left it. All your struggles have been happening within this peaceful emptiness, like waves on the surface of a deep, still lake. Master Bankei taught about the unborn Buddha mind, the awareness that was never born and can never die. This unborn awareness is what you are beneath all your personal history, beneath all your mental patterns, beneath all your spiritual searching. It is empty of all content, yet somehow closer than anything you could think or feel. It is what is looking through your eyes right now. What is hearing these words? What is aware of being aware? As your body continues to let go into rest, let this recognition settle deeper than thought. You don't have to understand emptiness or figure out how to live from it. You can simply let yourself be held by the huge, gentle space that you are. Let your worries, your plans, your sense of who you are soften into this emptiness like sugar melting in water. This is the ultimate teaching about not fighting, that there is nothing to fight because there is no solid self to do the fighting. There is just this open, aware emptiness in which fighting and not fighting appear as passing experiences. And in recognizing yourself as this emptiness, you find a peace that was never disturbed by any of the storms you thought were threatening you. The ancient Heart Sutra says, "Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form." This means that everything you experience, thoughts, feelings, sensations, the world around you, is not separate from this empty awareness. The emptiness isn't somewhere else waiting for you to find it. It is the very nature of what you are experiencing right now. When you see this clearly, the whole project of spiritual seeking finishes itself. There is nothing to reach because you are already what you were looking for. Rest now in this completion. Let the night sky teach you about the kind of emptiness that holds all the stars. Let the silence between sounds teach you about the awareness that hears all noise. Let your own breath teach you about the space that allows both breathing in and breathing out without being limited by either. You are this space. You are this silence. You are this emptiness that is somehow full of endless possibility. Not as a belief or idea, but as the lived reality that becomes clear when you stop looking for yourself in the wrong places. Stop looking for yourself in thoughts and find yourself in the awareness of thoughts. Stop looking for yourself in experiences and find yourself in the experiencing itself. In this recognition, fighting becomes impossible because there is nothing separate from the flow to fight it. There is just flowing happening by itself in perfect harmony with the emptiness from which it comes and to which it returns. And you don't watch this flow from outside. You are the flowing. You are the emptiness. You are the perfect, easy dance of life, knowing itself. This is the deepest teaching sleep offers every night. The invitation to melt back into the source awareness from which all experiences come. Tonight, as your mind naturally fades into rest, you are not losing anything real. You are returning to the emptiness that you are. The peace that was never disturbed, the wholeness that was never broken. And in that return, you remember what the masters have always known, that searching ends not when you find something, but when you realize you were never lost. In the deepest recognition of emptiness, in the deep understanding that you are the space where all experience happens, something even closer reveals itself. Beneath the emptiness, within the silence, at the heart of all seeking and finding, there is pure stillness. Not the stillness of something stopped, but the stillness that was never moving. Not the silence of sounds ended, but the silence from which all sound comes and to which it returns. This is your ultimate home. Not a place you go to, but what you are when all traveling stops. Not a state you reach, but what remains when all reaching stops. You are returning to the stillness now as your body settles and your mind grows quiet. This isn't preparation for sleep. This is remembering what you never actually left. The ancient masters spoke of this as the gateless gate, the puzzle of arriving somewhere you have always been. There is nothing to enter because you are already inside. There is nothing to find because you are what was never lost. Tonight, as your mind naturally dims and lets go, you are not going anywhere. You are simply recognizing where you have always been. There was once a student who traveled for years seeking the perfect teacher. He visited schools after schools, learning meditation ways, studying books, practicing countless methods. Finally, tired and sad, he sat down by a quiet stream to rest. As he listened to the water flowing over stones, something clicked. He realized he had been carrying his destination with him all along. The peace he looked for wasn't in any outside place or practice. It was in the very awareness that had been looking for it. You too have been carrying your destination with you through this entire journey. Every teaching you have heard, every story that made sense, every moment of understanding, they weren't adding something new to you. They were helping you recognize what was already complete. The stillness you are touching now isn't different from the stillness that was present when you first began listening. It is the same unchanging awareness, simply more clearly seen. Night is humanity's greatest teacher of stillness. Every evening, the world naturally settles into quiet. The busy activity of day gives way to rest. The constant doing melts into being. Your body knows this rhythm well. Your cells understand the wisdom of cycles. Your nervous system is already preparing for the deep healing that comes when you stop fighting the natural pull toward rest. Feel how willingly your body wants to let go. Your muscles don't fight the bed support. Your bones don't fight gravity's gentle pull. Your breath doesn't argue with the night air. There is a smartness at work here that is far older and wiser than your thinking mind. The same smartness that moves the tides and turns the seasons is moving through you right now, inviting you deeper into the stillness that supports all life. Master Dogen wrote about Buddha nature as the natural awakeness that is present in all beings. He said this nature doesn't come and go based on our spiritual practice or understanding. It is constant, like the wetness of water or the heat of fire. Your true nature is stillness itself, not something you have, but what you are. And like water that is always wet, Whether it is moving or still, you are always this awareness whether your mind is active or quiet. There is a story of an old woman who lived alone in a small mountain hut. Travelers would sometimes stop by, seeking shelter for the night. She never spoke much, just offered tea and a place by the fire. But people left feeling deeply rested, as if they had touched something essential. When asked about her secret, she simply said, "I gave up trying to be helpful. Now I just am what I am. Sometimes that is enough." This old woman understood something deep about stillness. It is not something you do or create or maintain. It is what you are when you stop trying to be anything else. When you stop the tiring project of self-improvement and simply rest in your natural state. This isn't laziness or giving up. This is the deepest intelligence, recognizing that what you have been looking for is what you already are. Your breath is teaching you this lesson right now. Each breath in comes from stillness. Each breath out returns to stillness. The pause between breaths is not emptiness waiting to be filled. It is completeness that needs nothing added. In this pause, in this moment of natural stillness between movements, your true nature is most obvious, not hidden or far away, but closely present. The great Zen master Huangpo taught that seeking Buddha nature is like looking for an ox while riding on one. You tire yourself searching for what is carrying you. You strain your eyes looking for what is behind them seeing. Right now, as you hear these words, what is it that is listening? As you feel your body against the bed, what is it that is aware of feeling? This aware presence isn't something you own. It is what you are. This presence has been with you through every experience of your life. It was there in childhood wonder and adult worry. It watched your happiest moments and your deepest sorrows. It observed your successes and failures with the same unchanging clarity. This watching awareness is the stillness that has never been disturbed by any of life's storms. It is what remains constant while everything else flows and changes. The night sky teaches this same lesson. The darkness isn't the absence of light. It is the space that holds all light. Stars shine not because they fight against darkness, but because they rest in it. They find their brightness not by fighting the night, but by being themselves within it. You too can let your awareness shine naturally within the darkness of not knowing, of uncertainty, of the vast mystery of life. There was a master who never gave formal teachings. Students would gather hoping for deep talks, but he would just go about his daily activities, sweeping, gardening, preparing simple meals. Years passed. Finally, a frustrated student demanded, "Master, when will you teach us?" The master paused in his sweeping and said quietly, "What do you think I have been doing?" Every movement from stillness is teaching. Every return to stillness is learning. You have been trying to hear words when the whole body and mind is already speaking. This master understood that stillness isn't separate from activity. True stillness isn't the opposite of movement. It is the aware presence that remains unchanged. Whether the body is moving or still, whether the mind is busy or quiet, whether life is rough or peaceful, this is the stillness you are resting in now. Not the stillness of a dead body, but the alive, aware stillness of consciousness itself. As you settle deeper into rest, you might notice thoughts becoming more spaced out. The mental comments that usually narrate your experience grow quieter. The urgent sense of needing to figure things out fades. This isn't unconsciousness coming. This is consciousness relaxing into its natural state. Like a river getting wider as it nears the ocean. Your awareness is getting bigger as it remembers its source. In Zen, there is a teaching about shikantaza, just sitting, not sitting in order to achieve something, but sitting as the expression of what you already are. Your lying here now can be the same pure activity, not lying down in order to fall asleep, but resting as the natural expression of your true nature. Sleep will come or it won't. But the resting in aware stillness is already complete. This completeness is what the Buddha meant by nirvana. Not a place you go after death, but the peace that is available right here. When fighting ends, when you stop trying to be different from what you are, when you stop the constant effort to improve or fix or control your experience. Nirvana is discovered to be your ordinary state. When extra effort finally stops, there is a beautiful story about a dying Zen master. His students gathered around expecting final deep teachings. Instead, he simply said, "I have been dying my whole life, one breath at a time. This is just the last breath, no different from any other, except now there is no next breath to wait for." Then he smiled peacefully and was gone. His teaching was complete stillness, meeting even death without fighting, without making it special or terrible. Just the natural completion of what had always been happening. You practice this same dying every night as you fall asleep. Each day's identity dies away. Each day's concerns release their grip. Each day's sense of urgency fades into unimportance. Sleep teaches you that you can let go of everything you think you are and still be perfectly fine. In fact, you are more than fine. You are at peace, the peace that was never actually threatened by any of the day's dramas. This peace isn't personal. It doesn't belong to you like a thing you could lose. You belong to it. You are its temporary expression, like a wave that rises from the ocean and returns to the ocean. Your individual consciousness comes from this universal stillness and returns to it each night. But the ocean is never made smaller by the wave's return. If anything, it is made richer. Master Linji taught his students about the true person of no rank, the self that exists before all titles, all achievements, all identities. This person needs no introduction and leaves no trace. This person is what you are in deep sleep when all the day's roles have been forgotten. Teacher, parent, worker, seeker. All these labels dissolve, and what remains is pure conscious being. Not the being of something in particular, but being itself. You are touching this pure being right now. Not as a special experience to hold on to, but as the simple fact of existing before you dress existence up with stories about who you are and what you need. In this undressed awareness, there is nothing missing and nothing extra, just the deep simplicity of being aware that you are. The ancient Upanishads speak of this as Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. Not three separate things, but three parts of the same reality. You exist, you are aware of existing, and there is a natural happiness in this simple fact of aware existence. This happiness doesn't depend on things being pleasant. It is the basic joy of being itself prior to any judgments about whether being is good or bad. Feel this basic happiness available now. Not happiness about something specific, but the simple satisfaction of awareness meeting itself. The quiet joy of consciousness recognizing its own nature, like coming home after a long, hard journey. There is relief in remembering what you never actually left. There is rest in recognizing what was never tired. There is peace in touching what was never disturbed. As your body continues its natural preparation for sleep, let this recognition go deeper than thought. The teachings you have heard tonight aren't ideas to remember. They are pointing to what you are beyond memory, beyond understanding, beyond the need to know anything at all. They are invitations to rest in the stillness that needs no maintenance, no protection, no effort to keep. There is a final story about a young monk who approached his teacher with one last question. "Master, I have studied all the teachings, practiced all the methods, understood all the rules. What more is there?" The old teacher looked at him with infinite kindness and whispered, "Who is asking?" In that moment, the question and the questioner dissolved together. What remained was just stillness being itself with no one there to disturb it. This is your invitation now, not to answer any final questions, but to let both questions and questioner melt into the stillness that was never disturbed by either. Not to remember anything more, but to rest in what you are before memory begins. Not to achieve any final understanding, but to be what understanding points toward. The night is holding you now with the same tender care it has offered people for thousands of years. The darkness wrapping around you is not empty space, but the source of all existence, the source from which all light comes and to which it gratefully returns. You are part of this ancient rhythm, this eternal dance of appearing and returning, activity and rest, knowing and not knowing. Let yourself be held completely by this rhythm. Let your breathing match with the quiet beat of the earth beneath you. Let your heartbeat align with the deeper rhythm that moves the stars in their paths. You are not separate from this huge, smart unfolding. You are its momentary self-recognition, its way of knowing itself through your awareness. And in this knowing, all fighting naturally ends, not through effort or practice, but through recognition. You see that there was never anything to fight because there was never anyone separate from life to do the fighting. There was just life living itself, awareness knowing itself, stillness being itself through what seemed like separate waves, but was always the same ocean. Rest now in this ocean of stillness. Let your mind settle into its source like dirt in still water naturally falling to the bottom. There is nothing to hold on to and nothing to push away. No self to maintain and no experience to escape. Just this huge, gentle awareness where all of life's dreams come up and go away like ripples on an endless lake. Sleep comes not as unconsciousness, but as the deepest consciousness. Awareness so complete it needs no object. So fulfilled it requires no content. So at peace it welcomes even the absence of experience. You are not losing anything as you drift towards sleep. You are returning to everything you ever were, are, and will be. The stillness receives you now as it has always received you, as it receives all beings when they stop trying to be anything other than what they are. In this receiving, you discover the deepest teaching of all. You were never lost, never broken, never separate from the peace you looked for. You are always home in this stillness, always held by this love, always complete in this moment of perfect, easy being. Rest well in this recognition. Let the night teach you what the day sometimes hides, that you are not the wave frantically trying to reach the ocean. You are the ocean temporarily dreaming itself as a wave, now remembering the truth that was never actually forgotten. In this remembering, all searching ends not in finding, but in being found by what you always already are. Now let us finish our journey with some timeless Zen stories. A poor man walks slowly through a thick forest, his shoulders heavy with worry, bills unpaid, relationships strained, dreams put off. Each step seemed to echo with the weight of his many troubles. The leaves above filtered the sunlight into gentle patterns on the forest floor. But he noticed none of this beauty. His mind spun endlessly through his problems, each thought leading to another worry, another reason why his life felt so difficult. Tired from walking and thinking, he stopped to rest against what looked like an ordinary tree. Its trunk was wide and welcoming, its bark smooth against his back. As he leaned there, catching his breath, he realized how thirsty he had become. "I wish I had something to drink," he whispered to himself. Instantly, as if appearing from thin air, a cup of cool, clear water appeared in his hand. He stared at it in disbelief, turning the cup this way and that, checking it for some trick or illusion. The water looked pure, inviting. Carefully, he brought it to his lips and drank. It was the most refreshing water he had ever tasted, cool and sweet, exactly what his dry throat needed. "That was strange," he said aloud. But his stomach chose that moment to growl with hunger. Almost without thinking, he wished for food. A simple but healthy meal appeared before him on a wooden plate. Fresh bread, ripe fruit, and vegetables that looked as if they had just been picked. The smell made his mouth water. He ate slowly, marveling at each bite. "My wishes are being granted," he whispered in amazement. The realization sent a thrill through his entire body. "Well then," he said with growing excitement, "I wish for a beautiful home of my own." Before his eyes, in the meadow just beyond the tree, a magnificent house appeared. It was everything he had ever dreamed of. Big rooms filled with light, comfortable furniture, gardens blooming with flowers. His heart raced with joy as he stood and walked toward his new home. "If I have such a house," he thought, "I will need help to take care of it." He wished for helpers, and immediately several kind-faced people appeared, bowing respectfully and asking how they might help him. The man laughed with joy, hardly believing his incredible luck. And what good is a beautiful home without someone special to share it with? He wondered aloud. He wished for a beautiful, loving, smart woman to be his companion. A lovely woman appeared beside him, her eyes warm with affection, her smile gentle and knowing. But as she took his hand, something shifted in the man's mind. The voice that had whispered doubts throughout his life suddenly grew louder. "Wait a minute," he said, stepping back from the woman. "This is ridiculous. I am not this lucky. Things like this don't happen to people like me. This can't be real." As the words left his mouth, everything began to fade. The woman's loving smile dissolved first, then the helpers, then the beautiful house, and finally, even the simple meal he had enjoyed. He found himself alone again, leaning against what now seemed like an ordinary tree with nothing but his original troubles for company. He shook his head knowingly. "I knew it," he muttered, and walked away through the forest, his mind immediately returning to the familiar patterns of worry and complaint that had occupied him before. Buddha's wisdom reminds us we are what we think. All that we are comes from our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. The heart of this lesson lies in understanding the power of belief and the self-hurting nature of doubt. Why do we so quickly push away the good that comes into our lives? Zen Buddhism points to a deeply ingrained pattern in the human mind, the habit to trust our limits more than our possibilities. We become so familiar with struggle, so identified with our problems, that good things feel foreign, even scary, to our sense of self. Think about how often throughout your day you might receive unexpected kindness, notice surprising beauty, or find chances that could change your situation. How quickly do you dismiss these gifts as coincidence, luck, or too good to be true? This automatic doubt often causes us to literally walk away from the very blessings we have been looking for. The wishing tree represents the responsive universe that Zen teaches us about. Reality that reflects back our deepest beliefs about what we deserve and what is possible. When we approach life with trust and openness, we often discover resources and chances that were always available but previously invisible to us. When we approach with distrust and self-doubt, these same possibilities seem to vanish. The man in the story had access to everything he needed, but his habits told him that someone like him couldn't possibly be worthy of such gifts. His belief in his own limits became more powerful than what he saw with his own eyes. This is the tragedy of self-doubt. It causes us to leave behind the very solutions to our problems. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi said, "Each of you is perfect the way you are, and you can use a little improvement." This puzzle points to the balance between accepting our natural worthiness while remaining open to growth. The man under the tree couldn't hold both truths at the same time, that he was worthy of good things and that positive change was possible in his life. In our modern world, we find wishing trees constantly. The co-worker who offers real friendship, but we assume they have hidden reasons. The job opportunity that seems perfect, but we convince ourselves we aren't good enough. The romantic relationship that feels too good to be true, so we ruin it before it can disappoint us. Each time we choose familiar limits over unfamiliar possibility, we walk away from our own wishing tree. The Buddha taught, "Doubt everything, find your own light." But there is a key difference between the doubt that leads to wisdom and the doubt that leads to failure. Wise doubt questions assumptions and seeks truth. Self-defeating doubt assumes the worst about ourselves and our possibilities, then treats these assumptions as facts. Zen practice invites us to notice when we are pushing away good fortune, plenty, or love simply because it doesn't match our usual story about ourselves. Can we remain open to the possibility that we might be more deserving, more capable, more lovable than our habits suggest? Tonight, as you think about the day's experiences, can you find moments when you might have walked away from your own wishing tree? Perhaps a compliment you ignored, a chance you assumed wasn't meant for you, or a moment of joy you cut short because it felt too good to last. What would it mean to trust in your worthiness to receive life's gifts? As the Buddha observed, thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. The wishing tree's magic isn't made smaller by granting wishes, it is fulfilled by them. And our capacity to receive life's blessings isn't made smaller by accepting them, it is made bigger. A clever young student had grown tired of his teacher's seemingly wise responses to every question. He was convinced that the old master simply spoke in puzzles to appear smart, and he decided to make a test that would show what he believed was just faking. After thinking for several days, he came up with what he thought was the perfect trap. One morning, the young man caught a small sparrow in the garden. The tiny bird shook in his cupped hands, its heart beating fast against his palms. He held it carefully behind his back as he walked toward his teacher, who was sitting peacefully in the morning sunlight, reading old books. "Master," the student called out with barely hidden excitement, "I have a question that will test your famous wisdom." The old teacher looked up from his reading with patient, gentle eyes. He had seen this look of playful confidence in many students over the years, and he understood the young man's need to challenge authority as part of his own growth and learning. "Please," the teacher said simply, "ask your question." The student stepped closer, keeping the bird hidden behind his back. "Master, I hold a small bird in my hands. Using your great wisdom, tell me, is this bird alive or dead?" The young man felt incredibly clever. He had created what he believed was an impossible situation for his teacher. If the master answered alive, he would quickly snap the bird's neck and show the dead creature, proving the teacher wrong. If the master answered dead, he would simply open his hands and let the living bird fly away, again proving the teacher's lack of true insight. Either way, the student was certain he would show his teacher's supposed wisdom as nothing more than lucky guessing and double talk. He waited eagerly for the response that would give him the satisfaction of finally outsmarting the old man. The teacher sat quietly for a long moment, not trying to look behind the student's back or gather more information. His eyes seemed to look not at the student but through him, as if seeing something far deeper than the simple trick being attempted. Finally, with a gentle smile that held both kindness and understanding, the master spoke. "The answer, my young friend, is in your hands." The student stood frozen, his mouth hanging open slightly. In a few simple words, his complicated trap had been completely taken apart. The teacher hadn't fallen for either option of the false choice. Instead, he had pointed to something far more deep, the basic truth that the student himself held the power to decide the outcome. The young man looked down at his hands, still cupped behind his back, feeling the tiny bird's rapid heartbeat against his palms. He realized with startling clarity that the master was right. The bird's fate had never depended on the teacher's answer or supposed wisdom. It had always been entirely in the student's control. More than that, he began to understand that this was true about far more than just this moment. The power to choose life or death, creating or destroying, kindness or cruelty, all of it was always in his hands in every situation, every day. Slowly, the young man brought his hands forward and opened them. The small bird sat still for just a moment, as if getting ready, then spread its wings and flew into the blue sky, disappearing among the trees. Buddha's wisdom teaches us we are what we think. All that we are comes from our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. This ancient wisdom lights up the deep responsibility that comes with conscious choice and the recognition that we are always the builders of our own experience. Why do we so often look outside ourselves for answers that can only be found within? Zen Buddhism points to our habit to seek authority figures who will tell us what to do, what to think, what to choose. But the deepest teaching is that true wisdom cannot be given from one person to another. It can only be found through our own conscious engagement with life. The student's question seemed to be about the teacher's insight, but it was actually about his own power. He was so focused on proving the master wrong that he almost missed the deep truth being offered, that every moment gives us choices that shape not only our immediate situation, but our character and future. Think about your own daily decisions, both large and small. How often do you wait for someone else to tell you what the right choice is? How frequently do you seek permission, approval, or guidance for decisions that ultimately rest entirely in your own hands? The young man's bird represents all the power we hold, but sometimes fail to recognize. In our relationships, careers, and spiritual growth, we constantly face moments where we hold something precious in our hands: the well-being of others, our own honesty, chances for growth or destruction. The outcome depends not on outside situations or other people's wisdom, but on what we choose to do with the power we hold. The master's response reveals something crucial about real teaching. True teachers don't give answers. They point us back to our own ability for wisdom. They help us recognize the choices we are already making and the power we already possess, rather than encouraging dependence on their authority. Zen teacher Charlotte Joko Beck said, "We are always in choice, even when we think we're not." The bird in the student's hands represents all the moments when we convince ourselves we have no options, no power, no responsibility. But being conscious always involves choice, and choice always involves responsibility. Look deeply at a current challenge in your life. Where are you waiting for someone else to provide answers, solutions, or direction? What would change if you fully recognize that the power to shape the outcome is already in your hands? This doesn't mean you have control over all outside situations, but you always have a choice about how you respond. The Buddha taught, "The mind is everything. What you think you become." Every thought, every intention, every action is like the student's choice with the bird, a chance to create life or death, beauty or pain, wisdom or ignorance. The answer is always in our hands. Tonight, as you consider the various situations in your life where you seek guidance or feel powerless, can you sense the truth the Master was pointing to? Can you feel the weight of the choices you carry every day? Not as a heavy load, but as the basic dignity of being alive. As the Buddha observed, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. The bird flies free not because of the teacher's wisdom, but because of the student's choice. In recognizing our own power to choose life over death, kindness over cruelty, truth over lies, we discover that the answer to every important question has always been in our hands. A wealthy merchant had built a huge fortune through years of smart business dealings and careful investments. His family owned many properties, controlled trade routes, and held considerable power throughout the region. As he aged, the merchant became increasingly concerned about ensuring his family's continued success long after his death. Having heard of a famous Zen master whose wisdom was said to go beyond ordinary understanding, the merchant decided to ask for something special. He approached the master with a request that seemed both generous and practical. "Master," he said, bowing respectfully while showing off his finest robes and jewelry, "I would like to ask you to write something deep that will encourage the success of my family for generations to come. Something that my children and grandchildren can treasure and draw inspiration from long after I am gone. Money is no problem. I simply want the most powerful blessing you can provide." The master listened quietly to this request, watching the merchant's obvious wealth and the sincere concern he felt for his family's future. After a moment of thinking, He nodded his agreement and asked for a large piece of the finest paper. The merchant watched eagerly as the master prepared his brush and ink with care. He expected fancy writing, perhaps ancient wisdom about getting rich or powerful sayings that would ensure his family's continued success in business and life. The master's fame suggested that whatever he wrote would be both beautiful and deep. With simple, elegant strokes, the master wrote just 7 words: "Father dies, son dies, grandson dies." When the merchant read what had been written, his face turned red with anger and disbelief. This was not at all what he had expected or requested. "Master," he shouted, his voice rising with upset, "I asked you to write something that would bring happiness and success to my family for generations. Instead, you give me this sad message about death. Why do you give me something so sad like this?" The master looked at him with calm, kind eyes and began to explain the deeper meaning behind what might appear to be a dark prediction. "Think carefully about what I have written," the master said gently. "If your son should die before you, this would bring unbearable sadness to your family. Parents are not meant to outlive their children. Such loss creates a wound that never fully heals. If your grandson should die before your son, this too would bring tremendous sadness to your family and disrupt the natural flow of life." The merchant began to listen more carefully, sensing there was something deeper in the master's words than he had initially understood. "But if your family continues generation after generation, with each death happening in the natural order I have described, this represents the best course of life. This is the pattern that brings the least pain and the greatest harmony. This natural order where each generation has time to live fully before passing responsibility to the next is true happiness and real success. As the Buddha taught, of all things, change is the most holy. This ancient wisdom lights up why accepting the natural order of life and death creates more real peace than any amount of money ever could. Why do we fight the basic reality that all things, including our own lives and those of our loved ones, are temporary? Zen Buddhism reveals that much of our unhappiness comes from fighting against change rather than finding peace within its natural rhythms. The merchant's initial understanding of success was limited to money, wealth, property, and power that could be passed down through generations. But the master pointed to a deeper form of success, the blessing of a family that experiences life and death in harmony with natural order rather than in tragic interruption of it. Think about how different our relationship to death becomes when we see death not as failure or tragedy, but as the natural conclusion of a life fully lived. The master's blessing wasn't dark. It was recognition that the greatest gift we can wish for our families is that each generation has the chance to live completely before making way for the next. This teaching also reveals the limit of trying to control the future through gathering resources. The merchant wanted to ensure his family's success through outside means. But the master suggested that true success comes from accepting life's basic conditions rather than trying to rise above them. In our modern world, we often measure family success by money legacy, the wealth we leave behind, the properties we pass down, the safety we provide. But how often do we consider the emotional and spiritual legacy of a family that understands and accepts life's natural rhythms? The Buddha said, "All made things change. Keep going with effort." This teaching reminds us that even while we work hard to create good conditions for ourselves and our loved ones, the ultimate success comes from understanding and accepting the temporary nature of all achievements. Look deeply at your own hopes and fears for your family's future. How much energy goes toward trying to control outcomes that are ultimately beyond our control? What would it mean to wish for your loved ones not safety from life's natural processes, but wisdom and acceptance in meeting them? The master's blessing contains a deep recognition. The alternative to natural order is not keeping things the same, but tragedy. By wishing for the normal sequence of generations, he was wishing for the absence of the early deaths and broken cycles that create the deepest forms of pain. Tonight, as you consider what you most hope for your family and loved ones, can you remember the Master's wisdom? Can you see that the greatest blessing might not be avoiding death, but the grace to experience it in harmony with natural order? Buddha's wisdom reminds us, better than 1,000 empty words is one word that brings peace. The Master's 7 words brought the merchant face to face with the ultimate reality that no amount of wealth can change: our participation in the endless cycle of birth, life, and death that marks all existence. True success lies not in escaping this cycle, but in dancing gracefully within it. In the busy capital city, where merchants shouted in crowded marketplaces and scholars argued in tea houses, the famous Zen master Bankei had completed another period of teaching at one of the great temples. Known throughout the region for his deep insight and ability to point students directly toward their Buddha nature, Bankei kept a simple practice of traveling between temples, offering instruction wherever sincere students gathered. As the master prepared to leave for his next destination, carefully folding his few things into a traveling bundle, a well-dressed gentleman approached him with urgent politeness. The man's fine clothes and careful manner suggested someone used to moving in high circles, likely a helper to one of the noble families that supported the temple. "Venerable Master," the gentleman said, bowing deeply, "I come with a request from the Baron, a man of great learning and sincere interest in your teachings. He has heard of your wisdom and wishes desperately to meet with you personally, but urgent matters have kept him today. Would you consider delaying your departure by 1 day so that he might have the honor of studying with you tomorrow?" Bankei, despite his eagerness to reach the next temple where students waited for him, recognized the real need in the request. The path of a teacher required flexibility and kindness, even when inconvenient. "Of course," he replied simply, "I shall remain 1 more day." The master unpacked his bundle and settled back into the temple rooms, spending the evening in quiet meditation and preparation for what he thought would be a meaningful meeting with a sincere seeker. He had met many nobles over the years who approached Zen with real humility despite their worldly status, and he looked forward to offering whatever guidance might be helpful. The next morning arrived with clear skies and the sound of temple bells calling the community to meditation. Bankei waited in his meeting room as the time approached. But instead of the Baron himself, the same well-dressed gentleman appeared again, this time with obvious embarrassment written across his face. "Master," the man began, his voice heavy with apology, "I bring sad news. The Baron was called away on urgent business that could not be delayed, matters of state that demanded his immediate attention. However, he has not forgotten his desire for your teaching. He has asked me to serve as his representative, to receive your instruction on his behalf, and carry your wisdom back to him faithfully." The gentleman paused, clearly hoping this arrangement would prove acceptable. The Baron's specific question concerns the nature of mind itself. He wishes to understand what is the true nature of consciousness, and how can one realize it directly. If you would share your teaching on this matter, I promise to carry every word exactly as you speak it. Bankei listened to this request with gentle attention, his expression remaining calm and kind. When the gentleman finished speaking, the master sat quietly for a moment, as if considering not just the question, but the entire situation, the absent seeker, the well-meaning messenger, and the deep impossibility of what was being asked. Finally, Bankei spoke with typical simplicity and directness. This matter of Zen is difficult to convey even through direct question and answer between teacher and student meeting face to face. It becomes all the more difficult, indeed impossible, to pass on through a messenger, no matter how sincere or capable that messenger might be. Having given this response, the master said nothing more. He simply sat in silence, embodying the very teaching he had just spoken. The gentleman waited, perhaps expecting more words or other suggestions, but none came. Eventually, Finding himself speechless and somewhat confused, the gentleman bowed politely and left the temple. The Buddha once said, "Be a lamp unto yourself." This deep truth shows itself in Bankei's gentle but firm refusal to reduce Zen wisdom to a message that could be carried by someone else. Spiritual waking up cannot be passed on second-hand because it is not information, but change. Why do we often approach spiritual learning as if it were school knowledge that can be collected and carried through helpers? Zen Buddhism teaches that waking up is not an idea to be understood, but a reality to be directly experienced. Like the taste of water to someone who is thirsty, it cannot be described well enough. It must be experienced firsthand. The Baron's question about the nature of mind reveals our typical approach to spiritual questions. We want to understand awareness intellectually, to grasp it with ideas, to own it as knowledge. But consciousness cannot be made into an object of study because it is the very subject doing the studying. It is like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. The seeing itself is what you are trying to see. Think about how often throughout your day you might approach spiritual wisdom as information to be collected rather than truth to be lived. We read books about meditation instead of meditating. We study descriptions of enlightenment instead of looking at our present experience. We seek answers about the nature of mind instead of directly examining what we call mind right now. Zen Master Dogen taught, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. This puzzle points to the heart of why spiritual teaching requires direct engagement. The self that wants to understand Buddhism intellectually is the very thing that must be seen through. This seeing through happens not through gathering knowledge, but through close investigation of immediate experience. The messenger in the story represents our own habit to approach waking up indirectly. We want to understand consciousness from a safe distance, keeping the illusion that we are separate watchers studying an object called awareness. But awareness is what we are, not what we have. It cannot be owned, understood, or passed on because we are expressions of it. Bankei's silence after his short explanation was itself a teaching. In Zen, silence often shows what words cannot. The gaps between thoughts, the space between breaths, the awareness in which all experiences arise. These cannot be captured in language, but can be directly recognized when we stop trying to grasp them with ideas. This doesn't mean spiritual teaching is impossible or that teachers serve no purpose. Rather, it means that real teaching points students toward their own direct experience, rather than providing second-hand descriptions of someone else's realization. The teacher's role is not to deliver enlightenment, but to create conditions where students might recognize what they already are. Tonight, as you experience the simple fact of being conscious, aware of these words, aware of your body, aware of the space in which thoughts and feelings appear, can you look at this awareness directly rather than through ideas? Can you be present to your experience rather than trying to understand it through someone else's descriptions? As the Buddha taught, work out your own freedom with effort. The path to freedom cannot be walked by someone else. It requires your own feet, your own breath, your own willingness to look directly at what you have always been, but perhaps never clearly seen. Tonight, as we bring this gentle exploration to a close, can you feel how the ease you have found isn't something you had to create or earn, but something that was always here, waiting beneath the surface of your busy thoughts? Can you sense that the calm you have touched tonight doesn't live only in these teachings, but rests quietly in your own awareness, ready to welcome you home whenever you remember to look? The Buddha taught us that you only lose what you cling to. Taking this wisdom to heart, remember that the peace and freedom you seek don't come from getting life to behave the way you want, but from loosening your grip on how you think things should be. They flow naturally when you stop demanding that this moment be different from what it is. Throughout our time together, each teaching has pointed to the same simple truth, that struggle comes not from life's challenges, but from fighting against them. That freedom isn't found by controlling your experience, but by changing how you relate to it. And that true rest comes when you finally stop trying so hard to fix everything. As you prepare to rest, notice that these ancient ideas haven't shown you some far-off place, but have shown what is possible right here in this very moment. In the stillness that follows, feel how your breath moves more easily now, how your body settles more naturally, how your heart rests without needing to defend or demand anything. These teachings remind us that wisdom isn't hidden in complicated practices or high ideas. It lives in the simple recognition that you don't have to be at war with your own experience. Tonight, you have tasted that recognition, the relief that comes when fighting finally stops and flowing begins. As you return to your daily life, carry with you not just the stories we have shared, but the quiet knowing they have awakened. That peace is always possible. That fighting is always optional, and that rest is always available when you stop pushing it away. May this understanding stay close, offering comfort in difficult times and deepening the joy you find in simple moments. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us on this journey.